No, subtle 3D knobs. I don't want to screw this up. You take this here. I want you to go to
See, you want me to
paste that link.
in or just hold them up?
Then I can view it.
You got 10 minutes.
If they want to come in and look around, that's fine.
I don't anyway.
I'm okay with that. If these guys are you okay with them?
Yeah, bring them on.
They can just look at samples. There's people asking questions of me out there. They might as well come in here.
Oh, it just literally posted. Let's see, copy web address. Let's see what happens when I try to go there. Open another app. Okay.
Ready?
So I've got I've got it now.
We got about 10 minutes. We're gonna have everybody stand out here.
So now we can.
You guys work like 7 days a week?
Seems like it, yeah. Eight. Eight days a week.
8.5.
So I think it's delayed, but it's live.
Right.
So like
did you
he's
do all
about to
these?
walk back
Yeah.
over here, then he'll walk back across.
And I saw that one up there.
Yeah.
So it'd be good. You can see it, and then you want to look
Yeah.
at it. It's actually kind of cool.
Yeah, you can walk back in time for a second.
On those.
Uh-huh.
All these
Okay,
blades.
so now we can position this however we freaking want,
Pretty cool.
and we can share this live chat.
So
I'm
then
gonna go.
I can also go to our Instagram and show.
What was your name again?
I'm
Can you?
Seatonn.
I have no idea.
Yeah, we've met.
Try it.
I know
Try
it.
it.
Well,
And
you've
what?
helped with several,
I don't know.
several projects.
But what I'm gonna do right now is I'm gonna take the link
Just join me again.
and go make a QR code out of it, and then I'm gonna print it out on the printer so we can people can come here and scan it on their phones and everything.
I should make Emma do
That's a good idea.
Mark, where are we gonna?
You're gonna gather on all around there.
Okay, is there a chair that I can grab somewhere?
Yeah.
I would have brought my own, but I thought it would be
We
at least
could,
something to
we
sit
could
on.
lathe you one real quick.
Thank you. Yeah.
Let's
Yeah.
just make one.
2 hours of standing will kill me.
Right. Oh, I hear you. And I'm glad you asked, because maybe they'll bring two.
Yeah. There we go. I almost brought one exactly like that, except we got a cushion. Set me down where I need to be, if you will, and
Place me to
all
sit.
right. Right here. All right, this is my goal, right here. Right
Very
here.
good. You can run the camera then too.
Yeah. Just seeing so many videos online.
I was just telling him that
Yeah.
since I started coming here, I just keep getting all the videos of a lot of lathe projects.
Mm-hmm. If I just make one, that's like it would be the culmination of a dream.
What's your name? I'm Tad.
Jack.
Jack.
And you say
Tad, like a tadpole.
tadpole. Okay, Tad. I need something. I always tell people, what's your name, Jack? Say you won't say hello to me in the airport. Yeah, think for a second. Hi, Jack. Okay, I won't say hello.
Hi, Jack. There you go. Yeah. Probably gonna say Abdullah or something.
No. Yeah, right.
That wouldn't
No,
work. That's not nice.
That's-
That's not nice.
So are these all yours? Or?
Oh no,
Oh,
teachers.
Okay.
Seatonn did it. Yeah, and I saw on that little ad they had the snowmen and the Christmas trees. I thought, hey,
Yeah, no.
Be a Christmas thing.
This is, I know. This side of the table. Pretty cool.
I love this stuff. I used to think you can make a bowl on a lathe just to carve inside.
Yeah, that's.
Hey Emma. I just said hi.
Oh, hi.
Say hi. How you doing?
And I know we've got at home. So you've done all projects here, right?
I've not done any lathe. I haven't
Oh,
done lathe since high school.
Oh, okay,
So, but
okay.
I've done
So
some
you're-
other very small
Okay,
projects.
I was just going to ask about the glaze on it, because
Oh.
we have glaze at home that we use on chairs. And it really is a nice glaze.
Sure.
Whatever. Anyway, well, I'll go perch myself over here.
Hey, good to see you.
I got my eye protection if we need it.
Oh, I didn't even think of bringing that. Probably should have. Get the draft. Okay, now this one looks mysterious. Did you do square on a lathe?
Well, when when it's spinning, it's like
Yeah.
steady hand.
Pretty cool.
I was just experimenting, and I wasn't planning on it coming out, so I just took 2 pieces of wood and did a glue up.
Oh,
And then I kind of liked it, but I haven't done another one since. I proved that I
That's
could.
extremely unique. Pretty cool. So what kind of wood is that?
Cherry.
It's cherry.
Is there any preferred type of wood? I mean, these all look different to me. That's a
Let's
novice.
see if these are all different. This is just pine. That's myrtle. That's tiger. That's Osage orange. That's myrtle again. This is. I don't think it's Paduke. Not sure. This is big leaf maple. This is cherry. This is black walnut, and that's a cherry burl. Yeah, that was made out of. It was cut off a branch of this. Yeah, well, I'm
It's
going to talk.
Japanese somehow.
I'm going to talk a little bit about, things you can do. The demos I was going to do a demo using this piece right here, but then I thought, I don't want people probably shouldn't grab a piece of wood with all these knots in it as their first thing. Maybe your
Pick 'em
second.
out.
And we might whip through stuff pretty fast. I might not complete pieces, just because I'm going to be talking about, what we do in different classes and the tools that we use and all that kind of stuff.
And I have some chunks at home that I want to bring in to use. Maybe when I come on Tuesday night, I could bring a sample of
Yeah, and I can show you how we use it. In
Would
fact,
it be best to take the bark off? I mean, there's a bark on one side, and we just chisel that off rather than having to,
yeah.
take it off.
Yeah, usually it's good. If it's going to come off, you usually want to take it off
Well,
before.
beforehand, okay.
But sometimes, when I was doing, I don't have it with me, I was doing a tree that I made with bark on it, and I kind of wanted the bark to stay on. But then the bark when it comes off in a big chip, you might want to have a full face mask
Yeah.
on. Yeah.
Like a COVID face mask. Okay. Got those.
Okay, how'd they do that?
Well,
Unless these are glued pieces, and if they put that on.
that's the secret.
Oh, mystery. I'm not gonna try to unscrew it, 'cause I'm gonna break it.
No. So here's the man to ask, but he may not let you in.
So is this 2 pieces? Wow.
One piece.
It's called
Wow.
craftsman.
Very cool.
Alright, I'm making noise just a second, guys. Yeah, we put the big bench back there too, so you can. And then Emma is. If you guys have Instagram, Emma should be posting a story on Instagram with a link to our YouTube video. So we are going to be videoing this, and it's slightly delayed. It's the first time we've tried this, but I think it'll be kind of cool because if you see something close up and you want to just look down at your phone, you may get a
bird's eye
little
view, sort of,
the bird's eye view on replay, right? Yeah, we're going NFL here.
Challenge flag.
Yeah. So it looks like we have a few more people walking in. We'll get started.
Right on.
We'll get started. Just a couple more people to just checking in, and then we'll get going.
Mind if I sit on this?
Not at all. You can even slide it closer if you want. So if you want, there's a lot of people here. You can get around and look. I have this. This is a safety barrier, but we've got a camera that's got a close-up on here, and that's being live streamed to our YouTube account. So if you want to have that on your phone or device, and every once in a while, if you want to look down or whatever, if that is, it might be helpful for you to have that. But
Pardon me for interrupting.
yeah.
Before you get started, this is how close that is. Do you want it closer?
Oh yeah.
That's what I thought.
It should just. We don't care about anything
Everything except for right there. All right.
And let me move this back.
All right.
And hopefully it doesn't block people's view too much. Can we do lower and
I
come
can do
right
lower,
from,
yep,
Yeah, and
yep.
let's go right in from the side, and that way it won't block people's view.
Yep. Let's get it down to about the right height. How's that?
Yeah,
look?
that doesn't block people's view. And
I would say it's not our first rodeo, but it's our first rodeo. Okay. That's right. Let's see how that's going to look once you get that all together. It's a live with delay, so it's getting a moment, but sure looking like it's about right, doesn't it?
oh yeah.
I think you're going to be fine.
That's fine.
Yeah, right. I didn't click.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I had to say great.
Hey, Bill. All right, I guess we can get started here. This is a link to live the Instagram with a delay, so it's just going to be looking up here. It does have a bit of a delay. I think you'll be able to see a lot of the stuff okay. Thank you for all coming. This is the first maker event we've had in a while. It's something that was done for a while and then we stopped for whatever reason, and now we've decided to start it up again. And we're going to talk about our lathe program here. And so in the lathe, this is, let's see, has anybody, have you taken a lathe class from me, or have I just seen you around here a lot? Has anybody taken a lathe class? That's right. Hey, how are you doing?
How are you?
Yeah. So there's no requirement to have taken a lathe class. In fact, the whole idea is to show you what we have. We teach 4 lathe classes. There's an intro class where we just get set up. We do fairly simple things. We can, at the end of that class, you can do things after these are like little vases or candlestick holders. You could make like bottle openers without a lot of detail. So the first class is getting you comfortable with the lathe, learning how to use the lathe, getting certified to come in on your own and start to make, you know, some fairly simple shapes. Then that is the prerequisite for all the other classes. There's what we call 101, which is adding detail. And in that class, you may not be able to do it the day you leave the class, but you learn all the skills to do. We're gonna have a holiday theme today. I'm gonna make stocking stuffers and Christmas trees and hopefully get you motivated to do that. But, you know, there's, you know, Christmas trees, snowmen. I was just goofing around, and when I was done, I thought it looked like an angel. I had no intention of it, so you could add it. So you can be, what I find out is a lot of people take a class, and we may make something like this in class, and then they're like, you know, everybody wants to make a bowl. And I actually love making bowls, but a lot of times I'll just come in and, like, for my class demos for the 101 class, I'm saying at the end of this class, you can make a snowman, you can make a Christmas tree, you can make a mushroom, you can make a spinning top with a confined, where's one of those? This is all one piece of wood. You'll have, the first time you do this, it might break into a million pieces, but you'll have the skill, or you'll have been introduced to the techniques that you can then come in and work on and build the skills to do all of this. I have never taken a lathe class. I had a friend teach me, and I'm YouTube trained. And let me tell you one thing about YouTube. There's a lot of really good stuff, and there's a lot of stuff that will set you back if you're not careful. So, because there's always somebody like me who thinks they're really cool and puts up a video, and then, you know, you don't really want to watch it. The next, after the intro class, you can either, you know, take this detail class, or you can take an introductory bowl class where you do simple things. We're fairly simple shapes. And what I brought here, I think this is like, this is kind of a nice progression of bowls. So in the first class, you might make something that looks like this. Well, when I first started teaching it, I purposely made people use crappy wood so they wouldn't get all careful when they started to have something, that they wouldn't be afraid of blowing it up. So this is something that was made in, the first time when we had bowls, it was a 3-day class. But we split that up into one day class to see if you like it. You don't have to make the 3-week commitment and then follow it on. So, you know, a beginning bowl. You're starting to get a little better, but, you know, it's kind of clunky and heavy. Now you're starting to add a few details, get a nice shape. You're getting a little more confident. So this guy's really thin and light. You know, if I dropped it, it would probably break. And then in the intermediate bowl class, the second bowl class, we actually go into making shapes that are hollowed out on the inside. These are not as hard as they look. And then as your skills develop, this bowl right here isn't really that much different than any of these. It's got a little undercut, but once you start dealing with bigger pieces of wood, you want to have your skills down so you don't take 5 days to make this. You know, a bowl like this, you know, I can have it basically shaped out and roughed in about, I don't know, 30 or 40 minutes. And then I spend more time now finishing, you know, getting a nice finish on the bowls than I do turning them. And then you can play around with other types of shapes. And when you start feeling really comfortable with the tools, then you can start working on more live edge stuff where your tool a lot of the time isn't even in contact with the wood. So imagine something like this spinning on the lathe and you're turning it, you're cutting here, you're free, you're cutting here. So you know, you learn those types of things the more you turn. What I'm going to do today is I'm going to focus on what we do in the intro class, show you what we can do there, and the intermediate class. And one of the cool things about working on a lathe is you really need to, you have to learn about wood. You have to know wood. You just can't take a cool piece of wood and put it on the lathe. And what I mean by that is you have to think about wood and how the grain is oriented. So in this case, the grain is oriented here. This would be mounted along the axis. So, you know, think about the grain as a bunch of straws that transport fluid. And I actually made a teaching aid out of straws and epoxy, but I used plastic straws and the epoxy didn't stick to the straws. And after I took it out of the mold, it fell apart. So I don't have my live demo. But this is what we call end grain turning, because if you like cut a round out of a tree for firewood, you've got on the top what you're looking at is the end grain, and you've got the side grain coming up. So when you're working with a piece of wood like this, it's called end grain turning because you're mounting into the end grain. But what you're doing is you're peeling away the side grain. And that is a process that is much easier than, say, in a bowl. When we take a bowl blank, this would be something that might turn into a bowl. The grain, we don't generally take, you might think, oh, you take a chunk of tree, take a slice out of it, mount it, and we'll make a bowl out of it. That's rarely done. And there's a couple reasons for that. So one of the reasons is, if you just look at it, all you see are concentric circles. But if you do things that are side grained, you know, you get a lot more interesting detail in the grain. So you're looking, I mean, it's mounted into the side grain. You get a lot more interesting detail. Also, if this was the end grain, when we mount it, and I'm not going to go into detail here, I go into detail in the classes, you're not going to get a secure mount, a securest mount screwing into end grain as you do side grain. And so there's actually some safety features. And then if this was all end grain, if any of you have worked with wood before or tried to sand wood or do things, we all hate end grain. It's really hard to sand. If you made an end grain cutting board, they're beautiful. Side grain sands easily. End grain doesn't sand easily. And so you'd be trying to carve out all end grain. And that's going to put a lot of forces on your tools. You can do it. I do it. A lot of vases are made that way. So what I'm going to start with, any questions? Just feel free to interrupt at any time. Holiday themed, even though it's only the middle of October, the Christmas decorations are already competing with the Halloween decorations and the Thanksgiving decorations. So we're going to go holiday themed. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make something that you can do in your intro class. In fact, the intro class on Tuesday, it's already full, and I'm going to make what you're going to make in that class after you play around and do a few other things. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a stocking stuffer, also known as a bottle opener. And let me tell you something about these bottle openers. The first time I made one, it's like, oh yeah, that's pretty cool. These make amazing gifts and stockings. You can do all sorts of crazy work. You can glue different woods up together. Make sure you do a good glue up though, or it'll fly apart on you. And there's nothing very difficult about this shape. There's no, you know, there's not any deep grooves, there's no big coves or beads to get into. So you can do this after the first class. You could probably also do this one too by adding a little bit of detail in it. So the way we make a bottle opener is we start with a blank of wood that is going to be our bottle opener. Oops. And this is, you want to make sure that the grain is running in this direction. So you wouldn't want to take a piece of wood like this and cut it out here as a square and try to make like a bottle stopper out of it because you would be trying to tear away the end grain, which would just splinter away like crazy. So you take something like this, and then you have to drill a hole. And because I want you all to know how to do this, I'm not going to spend time to do that. You take your blank, and you put it on the drill press, and you want to make sure that it is clamped down. You do not want to hold this by hand. Do not hold it by hand. Besides having an uneven, crappy hole, you could hurt yourself. So we clamp this down, we make sure it's clamped down, we mark the center. The other thing you want to do is you want to make sure it's straight, and then you turn on the drill press. I put a little mark to the depth I want to go for my insert, because I need this hole. Oops. And that's what happens when you don't screw the bit and tight it up. And the reason you want this hole in here is because we need to have a place to put our insert. But the insert has threads. So the next thing you do is, and if you want to do these, we have these here that you can check them out. We're gonna tap, we're gonna put threads in here. And the thing about wood is you gotta be, it's easy to strip it. So when you put these in, you know, you go in and get it going straight, and you want a lot of pressure in. Put that in, and if it starts to bog down, you back it off. Get to dust, and you continue that process till it's done. Usually that's all I do, and then I take a little screw truck, and I screw this in. The problem you might have is that, again, wood's not metal. You can strip these really easily, but you know, I've done it enough times. I rarely do the next step that's kind of advised, and that would be what I did in here. You can take a little bit of thin CA glue or super glue, CA glue, it's just super glue, and you can just run that down there, and that will give some structural integrity to the threads, and you can just thread this on. In the intro class that I'm teaching on Tuesday, this will be the second thing we do. The first thing we're going to do is a more traditional mounting that's going to use a spur drive that we have right here, but I'm going to take this out.
So are you gluing that in, or you put the glue in and let it dry?
Yeah, I just put a little bit of glue there, and I use the thin CA glue, so it just runs right down the sides. It doesn't muck up the threads, but it gives the threads integrity.
And you let that dry.
And I let it dry.
And then screw it in.
And then I screw it in. And so I'm going to do that. And then it's seated up against there. And then this is what's called the tailstock, and I'm going to bring that up for some added support. And then this quill, this is called a live center here. I'm going to crank that in. So this thing, let's keep this from rolling around. This thing is super secure. It's not going to go anywhere. So I've got that. This is locked down. I lock this down so it can't spin. I'm going to bring this, it's called the tool rest. I'm going to bring it up. We discuss the details of that. And then we're going to take something square and we're going to make it round. Now, in terms of safety when you're working on the lathe, technically, you can wear glasses that are hopefully resistant. I always I wear something that blocks stuff from the side, and if I'm doing things with bark on it, or you know, I've done epoxy, or if I'm worried at all about being really chippy, I wear a full face mask. So it would be you're always safe being safest. The next thing we'll do is we'll make this.
If anyone wants safety glasses, there's some in a box right there as well.
Yeah, and like if you want to look in here and get a little closer, I'd recommend you put some safety glasses on. And so now I'm going to make this round. I'm going to use the first tool that you're going to learn in the intro class is the roughing gouge. That's how we're going to make something square round. We're going to turn on we're going to make sure everything's clear. We're going to turn the lathe onto the lowest speed. We'll talk about in class what safe speeds are. I'm going to crank this up pretty fast. And now I'm just going to make this round. And you can tell it's round when it doesn't. If I would put this on, might be a little bumpy still. Might be. When it was still square, you know, it had just gone like that. So, okay, so now we have a round, nice little round piece of, looks like walnut. And we're gonna make a very simple shape. Maybe we'll do something like this. And the tool, you can use, one of the things we'll talk about in class, you can actually use this tool. I'm going to bring the tool rest up a little bit. The tool rest is what helps us with our mechanical advantage, because there's a lot of force on this tool. So if this is our kind of pivot point, or we've only got a short distance here, we've got a big lever arm here, so we've got mechanical advantage. Although wood's always going to do what it's going to do. So now the next thing we can do is, like, I can start removing material with this. So you can just see. Get some nice little chips, but we'll also work in the first class. We work a lot with this carbide tip scraper. This is a really forgiving tool. It's fairly straightforward to use, and we take it, we're in parallel, or we're coming in perpendicular. The tool is always parallel to the ground. Notice one of the things I do when I'm cutting, you're not seeing me just stand my body still and use my arms. You're seeing me use my body. And when you use your body, if you do this and you're right-handed, it's hard to do this if you're right-handed, but if you're using your body, it's not hard to do this left-handed. So turning is something that you should try to become ambidextrous at, because sometimes it really helps. And if you use your body to make the cut, that's how it's going to work. So now we're going to add a little shape to this. So let's do something down by the handle. So now we got a little drippy thing there. That looks kind of cool. And then we're just going to remove a lot of material. And one of the tricks is, if you want to have a straight angle, you can take the tool rest, you can kind of orient it at the angle that you want. And then when you turn the lathe on, if you use your finger as a guide, you're going to be the same distance away. So I'm starting to take away more material. As I get to the end. And so now we almost have an opener. Let's round it here. And I don't know. Let's put something else there. And it's simple, but you have a bottle opener. And you can add more detail to it when depending on how the class is progressing. We definitely introduce this in the next class. This is called the spindle gouge. And we'll use it, like you can use that to kind of make some nice fine cuts. This will really minimize the amount of sanding you have to do. I went uphill. I'm going to bring this around and shape that in a little more detail. Bring that down a little bit. Go in right in there a little bit. And, you know, let's see if this looks any good. Let's put another little ring in there. I think that looks all right. Put another one up here. Well, oh yeah, I know what I want to do. That wasn't what I was trying to do. You heard a little skip there. Let's put this in.
Question.
Yeah.
It seems from this angle, from what I can see, you are bracing that into your side, as you said, moving your body.
Yeah.
And that's another point of
Yeah, I always,
holding it.
yeah, and that's something I talk about in class. That gives you a lot of stability by using, and it helps you use your body. Now there's sometimes, like when you're in a bowl where you can't use your body, where you can't brace it, but you're still using your body as opposed to this. And then let's just, looks like I saw a little rough spot on here. And then because this is mounted right here, depending on how secure your mount is, you can come in, check the height, and maybe, yeah, see it's a little wobbly, but I think if I'm gentle, I can get rid of the divot from that tool. And then I'm done. I don't think this cord is long enough. I would like to have a little bit of light on this. No, but we have an extension cord. This will help all those people in video land too a little better. There we go. And the final thing we do, I'm not gonna get this to a final rush, but I always wear a mask when I sand. I'm in here all the time, and dust over the long term is not good for your lungs. I recommend always use, and you know, I can bring this in. I could have taken another pass with one of the tools and gotten rid of some of see these tool marks? You can see them going away as I sand them out. I would have normally taken the time to remove those with the tool, because it's actually faster than sanding if I would have noticed them. It depends. So on this one, I started with, this was 120. If you do a really good job, you can start with 180 or even 220, but sometimes you just get a little tool mark. And a lot of times, sanding is an art in itself. When I'm doing side or end grain mounted, so I'm doing side grain, I can go pretty fast and be pretty aggressive, and the sand marks won't stand. If you're doing end grain and you're sanding too fast and it's building up heat, you can get, you know, deep 120 marks that are really hard to take out. So one thing about sanding is, sanding hard is not better, because then you get grooves. You know, let the sandpaper do its work. It will do its work, and generally you'll end up sanding less, because then you got these 120 marks that take forever to get out with 180, that take forever to get out with 220, and so you just, but you know, that's something that takes a while. So there we go. So that is, let's see if I can get this off. Well, I'll get it off later because it came off here. It will come off. It was super glued 3 days ago, so I know that's not the issue. Okay, so there we have it. And then when you're done, you can say, oh, I want it to be a bottle opener. I want it to be a wine stopper. And you can see, once you kind of get these tools down, I didn't do anything complicated there, right? You know, I just kind of stuck the tool in, and that's what we ended up with. All right, next. Yeah.
When you're like a bottle opener, one end's skinny and one end's fat.
Yeah.
Does it matter on the lathe whether you're taking the material off from the fat end into the skinny, or do you start on the skinny and
That is a very good question. That has a little bit of an advanced answer to it, but I'm going to tell you. And this is, remember the first thing I said was, one of the cool things about the lathe is you have to understand wood. It's not like taking a plank of wood and nailing it together. You have to understand how the grain is and how the grain is oriented. So the best way to do it on these types of things, think about, and I had a demo on this, but it fell, I told you about my little visual aid I made that fell apart on me. But I'm gonna try to, okay, here's, I'm making a cut. I've made this groove in the wood, and here's the grain. So I've got grain here, 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 because the wood's coming like that. That's this piece right here. Or better yet, you know, if we look at this, there's the fibers here, you know, are sticking out more here. So if I turn from high, oh wait, here we go. I got 3 fingers that work this way. If I turn from high to low, as I cut this grain, it's supported by the grain underneath it. And if I cut this grain, it's supported by the grain under here. If I cut in this direction, there's nothing supporting the grain right here, and it will tear out. This will tear out, and this will tear out. So as far as making a cut, you can go any direction you want. As far as spending time sanding and cleaning up the rough stuff you put in the wood, it makes a big difference which direction you go. Sometimes it's hard and you don't have a choice, and some woods tear out better than others, but that's what I was saying. Being a wood turner means you get to learn about wood, and I think that's a really cool part of it. Another cool thing about turning wood is it's a big surprise. It's like that box of chocolates thing. When you're making a table, you know, you go get your wood and you get these, you pick them out, it's gorgeous, or a cutting board, it's gorgeous. And of course there's always a big surprise when you finish it and get the pop, right? But when you're turning a piece of wood, you don't actually know what's going to be inside of it. And sometimes it's like, holy smokes, this is awesome. Sometimes it's like, oh, there's a big knot in it, now this goes into the garbage can or the firewood pile. So, you know, it's kind of a fun thing. All right, next, I'm going to do a different kind of a mount. This is called a screw chuck. We don't actually use this in the intermediate class. I would pin this between centers and I'll do something, but I had this piece of wood that already had a hole in it. This one's got this smaller. This hole might be a little big for this chuck, in which case it will just spin. But what I'm gonna do is I've drilled a hole in here. This is called the worm screw. It's kind of, you know, when you think about a worm drive that's used in gears, this has big, wide threads in it, and it'll also allow us, if we're not in there perfectly straight, it'll tighten up straight and be tight. So I'm gonna turn this on. This is going faster than I want, so you're gonna see me pull my hands out once this thing catches. And see how wobbly it is? But now, I can turn that so it's up flush against here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring up the tailstock. I'm going to put a different tool rest in. It's a little lighter. How are we doing on time? 3:30. Well, we're going to get to make a lot of stuff today. Okay, what we're going to do in this demo is I am going to demonstrate, or I'm going to use some of the tools that we spend more time in what we call the 101 class, adding detail, and I forget what the title is. It's still end grain mounted. After you take the intro class, you can either take this class, which is another, you know, we call this spindle turning or end grain, or you can take the intro bowl class. You don't have to take, there's no, once you take the intro class, you can take either the intermediate class in adding details to these types of things, or you can go right in to making your first bowl, which will look nicer than this one. So let's see, I don't want to be in the way of the camera. Okay, so I bring this up, just like I did before, lock that down, bring this in. I'm supporting it from both ends. If this wood starts to slip on the screw, if the hole is too big, we'll just remount it a different way. So again, I have to do the first thing. I got to make it round. So we've already done that once. I guess I could have made it round before here, but it won't take very long. So we start at our lowest speed. We make sure everything's clear. Turn on the lathe, and then if I can get, I want to spin this around 1800 RPM. But I go up slowly because you can see the wood's a little out of balance, but it's not vibrating the whole machine, so it's okay. It's starting to vibrate there. I'm gonna turn it down just a little bit till we get, I can see where it's going. So now we're just gonna, remember how I said you could check how the wood's round? That's not round yet. And notice I'm using my body and not my arm. Almost. There's some nice. Almost. Oh wait, we don't care about the top. That's going to be a tree. That's going to go away anyway. Okay, so when you think about a tree, so here's a bunch of trees that I've made. So you can go, this was a piece of, I don't really know the difference between aspen and birch. Somebody told me this one's birch. And I just took a chunk of the tree, and then I put it off center a little bit when I mounted it. So I'd make sure to leave some of the bark on it, and I just made this. I wouldn't recommend this as your very first way to make a tree because you got to get a little comfortable with, you know, knots and bumps and things like that. But that's something you can pick up pretty quickly when you get familiar with the lathe. And then, you know, you can go really simple. You can just make a V and put some marks in it. And I also don't recommend you, if you see a piece of wood with a big crack like that, there's plenty of good wood. I put on a mask when I did this, and I decided it's a demo, it's okay. But don't use wood, especially when you're starting with big cracks and knots in it. Like I said, if you do, wear a face mask. I'm not going to demo with something like this. And then you can add different levels of detail. So what I'm going to do is, this might be a really tall, skinny tree. One of the tools we learned to use in the next class, and we do a little bit of it in the intro class, is this spindle gouge. And the gouges, whether they call it a spindle gouge based on some features that I'll go into later, but whether it's a spindle gouge or a bowl gouge, the difference isn't just that one's bigger than the other. The difference has to do with, the main thing is the depth of the flute and the way the wings are designed. So this is really good at removing a lot of material fast. This is really good at making details. If you know how to use a spindle gouge, you know how to use a bowl gouge because the principles are the same. And I'm going to use this bowl gouge because I want to get rid of a bunch of material fast in the next few minutes. But let me point out a couple features. These gouges have the following features. There's a heel, so we've got our shank here, and well, first let me start. There's a flute that runs down the middle, and these flutes can be circular, U-shape, V-shape, and turners have their preference on using these. They also have different features on like removing material, for adding details. The spindle gouge, the flute is very shallow, and it's made for putting in details, not removing a lot of material fast. So we have the flute, and when it's pointed straight up, that's what we call 12 o'clock. That's 10:30 to you, 1:30 to me, 1:30 to you, 10:30 to me. So we use the dials on the clock. We have the heel, we have a bevel, and then we have our cutting edge. We have our tip, and we have our wings. The bevel is very important, and we spent a lot of time talking about this in the intermediate class and a little bit in the beginner class. And it provides a point of support. So this bevel, we want it riding on the wood. So when I turn this thing on, I'm going to move the tool rest up closer now since I've removed a lot of wood. And it's really rough. We don't care that it's really rough because we're going to shape it. And it's not perfectly round up here, but it doesn't matter because we're going to make a tree and get rid of all that anyways. So I'm going to turn that on, and I can crank this up now. Now that it's round, I can go up to the speed I want. And the way this tool works, that you will learn, is we basically set this on the tool rest. Can't really see it from your angle, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the heel on the piece of wood. Nothing's happening. I just go back and forth. So what I've got is my round piece of wood. What I've done is I've just set the heel on there and nothing's cutting, right? What I'm going to do, because it's hidden from you, I'll show you. First of all, I'm going to point this at about 1:30 to me, 10:30 to you. And then I'm going to bring that up so that the bevel is in contact. And if I go just a little bit up, that cutting edge is going to engage. Once I've started to cut, I can sit right on that bevel and make a cut. And what I'll do is I'll start something. If I stop this, what you can see is once I got that cut going, my bevel, so I started the cut, I was just sitting on that bevel and making that cut. That's a point of support. If I'm not on the bevel, the tool's going to do that to me. That will happen to you. And sometimes you can be making cuts when you're not on the bevel, but it won't be a smooth cut because you're not being supported by that. And if you're too much on the heel, you just won't make a cut. And so, again, I'm using my body. And you can see how much wood I'm taking away. If I use the spindle gouge, which I'm going to use, you know, I just can't take away material as fast. So we're gonna do something here. We won't go too skinny at the top. We don't want this thing to fall off. Although it is supported on this end with the screw, but it would be a little wobbly, and we don't want that. But we'll come down once more. We'll finish the top at the end. Oh, you know what we'll do? There was a chip on the end of there that just came off, as you saw. Okay, I'm ready to do a little more detail stuff with that, so I'm going to take a little smaller one. And just come through, smooth that up a little bit. It's not perfect. But we're going to do some other stuff to it, so we're not going to worry too much about it just yet. I have a plan for the tip. And I'm going to see if I can just even that out a little bit with this guy without breaking it. Okay, that's pretty good for now. Okay, next tool we're going to talk about that we'll use, we're going to add some detail to it. So this is called a skew chisel. And I want to be careful I don't get too close to the top here. I got kind of skinny there. And here we can start adding detail. You can come in, you can make some grooves. And there you have that. And so that would be like going down, and I put them a little closer together than this, and you can do that. Now we've got all this room down here. Let's do something with that. This is called a party tool.
I'd like to change up into that chair, if that's okay. I don't want to interrupt.
Yeah, feel free. If you
Oh,
can't
yeah.
see,
It's better for my
move
back.
around there.
Oh yeah, yeah.
That chair does help.
While you stop, I have another question. Does someone turning, not, let's say you in particular, but do you ever get a blueprint and someone says, this is what I want, and these are the exact measurements?
I don't do that for anybody except myself, but I do that for myself for sure.
Or you draw it out and you have specific measurements?
Yeah, like, well, I made a baseball bat for somebody. I did a, yeah, when I do a bowl like this, the proportions are really important. Like where do you put the curve? Where do you come in? Where's the inflection point here? What's the angle? Because if this wasn't done like this, it could be a little bit off and it wouldn't be pleasing. This is pleasing to look at because of the proportions and everything, and it wouldn't be pleasing. I've also done things like, little things like, I'm gonna grab, this will take me 10 seconds to get. One of our members asked about doing some private instruction to make a game. And so he sent me a picture and he said it's got to have a round top, it's got to have this, it's got to have this, this has to sit on here so you play this game. And so he gave me the picture, and before I agreed to do private instruction with him, I wanted to make sure I could make it. I didn't want to get there and wing it. So I told him, I said, is this it? He goes, yeah, those are all the right shapes, but it's not going to work. And so when he came in, we had a detailed blueprint of how wide this was, what that curvature was, this, how high this was, the tip of the point. This stuff down here is just decoration. So yes, indeed. You can see the wood had a chip in it that luckily, I think this will hold together. I'm pretty sure.
Quick question over here.
What's that?
Quick question.
Oh yeah.
How like long of a material can you do? Is there like an extension?
Oh, we have a lathe over there that can do like 4 feet.
Oh, okay.
And the biggest concern about that is when something gets thin, it gets more wobbly. So you might need some supports. They call them steady rests that you can put in there. That's got like bicycle wheels on it. So if you're trying to do something that's really long and really skinny, you know, there can be a lot of flexion in there. All right, so now what I'm doing is I'm just going it straight in with this tool. And then what I'm going to do, this is going to be one weird hybrid Christmas tree. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to do something like this. So what I've done is I've just gone straight in with this parting tool. And then I'm going to take, I can be fine using this smaller gouge because I'm doing more detail work. I don't want to take off too much of the time because I kind of want to be careful with what I'm doing. And now, when I'm working inside like that, I'm rubbing this bevel. Let's see, this one has an indent. Well, when it's flat, I'm still rubbing that bevel right up against that surface. But what we can do is we can go back to this skew chisel and we can make a little indent here. Whenever you raise and lower the tool rest or move things around, this tool for some work likes to be a little bit higher. Always a good idea to turn the machine off. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this and I'm just going to start carving away with this long point here. And I can also use that long point here to kind of bring that in. And I have to be careful. I don't want to turn this over and have this edge of the tool hit the bottom there, or else you get a nasty catch and the whole Christmas tree goes up in flames. And that's not what we want. Okay, so that's rough but kind of good. And let's put another one in. Oops. That's not where I wanted to put it. Now we'll go back to, again, this is all the stuff, we probably won't have time to do it in a class, but these are all the tools that you learn in the 101 class. And you'll probably be able to do most of this stuff that I'm doing. You'll learn about catches and things like that. Sometimes I'm always too scared to demo a catch, but we all get them. Even I get them. But, you know, it's nice not to have to, they're kind of scary. And then, let's clean that up a little bit. So you can take nice slow cuts to clean things up. And I'm steady because I'm just sitting right on that bevel, and then there's the cutting edge doing its thing. Then we'll go back to this guy. Just undercut it a little bit. I'm not going to spend too much time doing this because we got other stuff to do. All right, and now we'll put a trunk on it. I won't undercut this one. That is because the tool rest wasn't clamped down tight, that thing, and the tool rest started rubbing against the back of the piece of wood. So make sure we always get that stuff tight. And I raised the tool rest to use the one tool. I want to bring it back down a little bit. And then let's clean the base up. Let's round the base. Let's put a little bit of detail in it. That's kind of nice. And let's do something to the top. This is boring. Let's get rid of some of those. It's always nice to have the tool rest as close as you can and still have room for the tool to work, because the more overhang you have, the less support you have. I think that's nicer. And what I'm illustrating here is what's fun to do on the lathe sometimes is just play. I think that's too fat. That look like? That looks okay. Let's clean this up. Okay, now let's get to this skinny part and get scared. Remember, if this comes off, it's not going to go anywhere because it's supported here. This end will go flying. Actually, it'll just drop. Believe me, it's happened to me before. We'll use this skew chisel because I can get in here a little easier. I don't want that part to come off. I do want this part to come off. What I would do right now before, I mean, there's still probably enough support. I could still sand it from here. Ta-da! And let's just, what do I do with this? Let's just grab a little sandpaper. We'll make it look halfway respectable. I'm not going to spend time making these look perfect. And we have a Christmas tree that only a mother could love. My mom would think this is the most beautiful thing ever, and she'd be bragging to all her friends and showing it to them. Even when she was still alive and I was 50 years old, I could do nothing that wasn't perfect in her eyes. And there we have it. That's kind of nice. Now we're going to make a snowman. It's 4 o'clock.
Right on schedule.
Right on schedule. We're going to have time. I was going to be done with the snowman, but maybe we'll make some ornaments.
Now, how long did it take you to do that Christmas tree? A half hour, 45 minutes?
Well, I've been here a half hour, or we've been an hour, and I've talked a little bit, and I've made a bottle opener and a snowman, and I've been describing it, so...
But
that would, if I was doing that, that would take me like 10 minutes to make.
But how many hours on the lathe did you have to put in before you could make that tree in 10 minutes?
Well, the first time I made a Christmas tree was last year, and I had already had thousands of hours, but that doesn't answer your question. I would say it would take you'd have to be on the lathe a long time to do it that way. Because what you do, you will be able to make something like that with, I'm going to throw a random number out there, 10 hours on the lathe. If you focus on the tools, if you practice, you can come in. And one of the reasons I brought these little examples, so this is what somebody did in class. And they made something else, but they left this. And this is what, before we did the bottle opener or the vase or whatever, they were just playing around with the tool and they made this. And it may not look like much, but if you've never been on a lathe before and you make something like this, put a hole in the top, put a candle in it, that's pretty darn cool. And so, you can make something like this. A person new to the lathe, after the intro class, if they put that up, they could probably make this in 15 or 20 minutes, right? They're being careful and things like that. Maybe a half hour, I don't know. But the point is, once you get to the stage that you can do this, what I recommend, if you're really interested in developing your skills, is not try to make this. Because in making this, you're going to be so careful. You're going to start to get something you like, and you're going to be so afraid of making a mistake, it's going to take you a couple hours, and it might not even turn out the first time you try it. But if you start getting familiar with the tools and just play, make beads, make this. After the snowman that I make, I think we'll have time, I'll just play and show you. And that's when so I'll tell you a secret. I don't want you to think any less of me, but I never used the skew chisel till a year ago. Actually, I never did any of this type of thing till I started working here. I only made a few bowls. But once I decided that I was having fun making these kind of shapes, I decided I was going to learn how to use the skew chisel. And I spent hours doing nothing but playing. I didn't try to make anything. And I know there's patience and you want to do something, and in class you're going to walk away with something, but I don't know. Like, one of the first things I was practicing with is the dinger for the bell. It's like, oh, this is just a piece of junk, I'm going to throw it away. And then it's like, no, it's a dinger for the bell out there. And so, I know you've got something that needs, drill a hole in it, make a handle out of it, make garden tools out of it, have the best set of garden tools you've ever seen before. So, and it's that type of thing that, when you're at the cave and when you're with lots of people, you kind of get these mental blocks, but you can be around all these creative people. And it's like, oh yeah, I know what I'd do with that. So, all right, I'm going to make a Christmas tree or snowman, and it's also got one of these in it. So I'm going to use this same chuck here. And what I'm going to do, so you were saying, Bill, you were asking, do you ever measure things out, to get, and if I was going to make a perfect snowman, I would want to measure it out. But when we play in the woods, we just put a bunch of snow together and pile it up. And so we're not going to measure anything. We're just going to see what comes out. So I'm going to turn this down to its lowest level. I'm going to turn this on. Go in. Oh yeah, this one's nice and tight. This one's not going anywhere. I'm going to turn that off. Crank it by hand. We might not even get this one off of here. Yes, we will. We will find a way. I'm going to bring the tailstock up to give it added support. Bring that up. And this is where it's going to be. A lot of times I'll do something, I'm sure I'll have time to do one more thing, and I'll show you the mounting technique that we're going to use in the classes. But I just have these set up because they're quick and dirty, and I had them already ahead of time, and I didn't have to think much. Okay, this might be, unless I take off some material, this is going to end up being a really fat.
What wood have we got there?
What's that?
What kind of wood? have we got?
This is a piece of maple. Oh yeah, so the wood we've used, this was a piece of madrone. The bottle opener was walnut. And this is a piece of maple. This was one of those old dirty blocks out there that I cut
Oh.
So if you're wondering where one of your blocks went, no.
Those were cut-offs from reload,
Yeah.
actually.
So if you're and you know if you go to Hardwood Industries, it's hard to find like really good. They have a bin where you can go in and dig through it, but I was in there a month or so ago getting some wood to make some cutting boards with, and I went in and looked at it, and I saw some stuff that was like 3x3 that was only like this long and it was cut at a weird angle, and it was hardwood. I think it was oak, and you know, these are the types. You don't have to spend a lot of money to practice. You can use pine if you want. It'll look crappy because you'll get lots of tear out, but it's practice wood. All right, let's make a snowman. And again, the point of making a snowman is to show you some different techniques, all the things that are taught in the 101 class. So everything I've shown you, I haven't shown you any techniques that you won't be introduced to in the first 2 lathe classes. And like I said, we're not going to talk about bowls here. So let's get this guy going. Let's get my, yeah.
How many hours is the 101 class?
It is 2 hours. It used to be 3, but it's now 2 hours because when I taught it, it brings the price down a lot, and we were able to cover all the material in plenty of time. So it's a 2-hour class. The intro class is a 3-hour class.
And you only need the intro class to like be able to come and be on the lathe.
Yeah, you will get, and that's why it's a 3-hour class. So I can spend the first hour really getting people, and you also do all the setup yourself. In the next class, I have you do some setup, but for the sake of speed, I have you do other things. But in the intro class, I show you a piece of wood and you copy my actions as I get it set up to put on the lathe. And so yeah, that is a class that certifies you to come in and use it. And when we teach that class, so the people, I try to always have a co-teacher with me. It's either Mem or Gwen. And when you come in the first time, we always recommend people, hey, try to pick our shift. I'm a steward here also. I have a regular steward shift. You know, the cave, in case you aren't familiar, it's, besides the bosses, it's run by volunteers. So we volunteer 6 hours a week, and you know, we'll give you our shifts just so if you have a question. All right, snowman. By this time, I could have already had this round, but I should have done this one. Oops, this is a little loose again. Oh, that's a really good question. So it's not as much as you think, because what you're doing is oh, that's a pretty piece of wood, pretty piece of free cutoff. Yeah, we sold big chunks of this for $5, but nobody bought them, so I just cut them up and used them. We got to get some more. So what you're doing when you're doing the cut, once you get a line in there, I'm putting most of my force on the tool rest, because my bevel is riding on this spot right here. So as long as I keep the bevel on there, and if I come on the heel, I'm no longer cutting, so I need to bring up a bit to stay that I stay on it. If I get up too much, I might get a kickback like that. But it's not, your main pressure is down into the tool rest. I may look like I have a lot. I'm using this finger as a guide, you know, as I go across. And if I'm off see how I get more record lines, and when I'm on the bevel, you can see that's a lot smoother cut than that right there. All right, okay, Mr. Snowman. Oh, let's figure out where the different snowball. Oh, the other thing I want to do initially, I'm going to raise this a little bit for this tool. We'll talk about that in the class. Make sure it's clear. I'll go. That looks about right. Whoops. And that's what happens when you're not on the bevel. You get that kickback. And I didn't do that on purpose, it just happened. So it will happen to you. Happens to all of us. Let's go about here. We won't, we're not, I think it's actually not going to be that fat. Oh, maybe we'll go up a little higher. This is going to be his head. Obviously, we got to get rid of a lot of material. Or we can have some robot snowman. This might, we'll have to get rid of a lot more here. Okay, let's look on the bottom. So, I'm going to start just peeling away from here. I am using the spindle gouge now. So I'm just coming on here. I could also use this and kind of work my way around. There's a lot of different tools that you can use, and I recommend using them all. I know I'll be able to do it faster and less likely to have a catastrophic event that I don't want you to see if I use this tool. Oh, and notice what I'm doing as I approach the wall here. I'm on the bevel, I'm cutting, but as I come to the end, and I'm like at this 130, as I come to the end, I'm turning that all the way to 3 o'clock, because what I don't want is if I come in like this wing of the tool is going to hit the next part of the snowman that's up here, and we will get a catch. And a catch is what happens when your cutting edge takes too aggressive of a cut when it gets in there, and it's usually a result of it not being where it's supposed to be at the wrong angle at the wrong time. So we come around. I could have come a little higher. It's going to be not quite the right aspect ratio. All right, that looks pretty good. Now, the next level, he needs to be a little skinnier up there, so I'm going to use this roughing gouge just because I can make them. That's a little high for me. I should turn the lathe off when I do that. You will in class. Looks like a little machine gun going here. That's probably skinny enough. I'll go back to the skew and make this groove a little deeper here. And I'm going to get rid of some of the head too. Can't be too much of a brainiac. We'll be getting rid of more than that. But for now, that'll be good. And we'll make the delineation between the head and the thorax a little more noticeable. And let's use this one. See how this tool works. This is a little bigger. I can take away a little more material. Hard to get into the groove there. Notice I'm going downhill, and I'm also not starting here. If I start here, I don't want to take any material. In fact, one of the things that's a nice idea to do is if you want this to be the center of the circle, well, put a lot somewhere on there. Erase part of it. So let's say that's the widest part of the ball. I don't want to take any material from there. And so if I start here, and you know how a circle is, it's, you know, every point, you know, you got a tangent line to it. You're not taking a sharp cut there, so you're going tangent from that point. You're bringing that guy in. Looks pretty good. I don't know if I got the center just right, so maybe I'll take away a little of that. I'm going to get the skew, because that lets me, I can't really get the spindle gouge in there. And then I can just come in. Alright. Needs a little cleanup, but let's not worry about that yet. Let's make his head. This is going to be his hat up here. We don't want the brim to be this big. When you're just removing material, don't be afraid to be messy. You know, you're going to just get rid of the stuff. And if it doesn't look that great, nobody really cares, because it's going to look good in the end. We got a smaller guy for the head. The spindle gouge again. Oh, I'm going to put a little more relief up here by his hat. Maybe move the hat up a little bit. I think that'll look better. Use the skew again to get deep there. And now he's completely out of balance. We'll work on that a little bit. There we go. And then we can go in, you know, we can clean up some of these tool marks by doing some careful turning. Man, this guy, a little more work. That's better. Okay, let's make his hat. just use this big guy to get rid of a lot more material all at once. Okay, we'll do the rest with spindle gouge. I have wood chips in my mouth. Oh wait, not all of it. Got to make a brim. How tall will have? We'll have a big old top hat on. Now we'll shape the hat. I'm just gonna get the tool rest in there a little closer. Let's not make it a perfectly straight hat. I'm just getting rid of material so I can cut his hat off. Do a little cleanup here. See how some of those tool mark lines just go away when I scrape them off like this? That saves a few minutes of sanding. And I just want to look. Oh, his hat's got a little ding in it. Ah, let's take it off. He'll have a skinny brim. We don't want. You can't be having a notch in his hat. Alright. We'll use the skew. Getting my section in there. Then we'll take the nubbin off his hat. And then we'll give him a little, we'll do a teeny bit of sanding, not much. And then we'll be done with our snowman. Where did my, oh, here we go. Buried in the chips. I just put a sanding mark in by pushing too hard right there. Well, he's not perfect, but he's a snowman. Okay, any questions on that? What I guess the main thing is, the main thing is, I really want you to see with what you can do after the first 2 classes. There's no technique here that I showed you that we don't do in those first 2 classes. Well, let's say first 2, your second class could be the bowl class. In which case, you actually get exposed to, you'll be using this carbide tip scraper that you can completely do a whole bowl like this with. The one issue with these carbides is because it's a scraping motion and you're not getting a nice slicing motion like you have when you turn the gouge up on its edge. Think about whittling. When you don't, if this is your knife, you don't whittle like this, right? You scrape and put it at an angle, and so there's a difference between a scraping cut and a slicing cut. And when you're using a carbide scraper, you're scraping. You can get rid of material and you can make nice stuff, but you're not getting as clean of a cut. And so what we do in that bowl class, the first bowl class, is I want you to make a bowl. And I spent the first, when I first started turning, it was because I brought back a cedar burl from a diving and fishing trip up in Canada, and it sat in my garage for a long time. And you know, this was 30 or so years ago, and I went to a friend's house who was a turner, and I said, what should we do with this? And he goes, oh, I should have brought it. I still have it. He goes, let's make a bowl out of it. So it was a burl. We cut it in half, and my best friend and I made matching friendship bowls, you know, very sweet. And I did it all with this tool. I did all my turning of bowls for several years with nothing but these. And there's 2 disadvantages. One is you spend a lot more time sanding, and you can't, with something like a round tip like this, you can't get into details. Although they do make, and we have them here, they do make carbide tools with sharp tips that you can go in and put some detail. So you can make a lot of things using just these tools. That's the focus of the first bowl class, but I also have time in there because you're already supposedly certified and familiar with the lathe to introduce the bowl gouge, because I want to introduce that in there. And in the intermediate bowl class, which is a 2-night class, we talk about some more advanced mounting techniques, and we use the bowl gouge exclusively. And what I tell people is, just like when I was first using these more traditional, these they call these traditional tools for some reason, I guess. One of the owners here, Aaron, gave me, he found this book on the lathe from 1930 something, and it's amazing. The traditional tools are the same. You know, I'm not seeing anything different. You know, people play around with angles and things like this. So these basic shapes of these gouges and these skew chisels really haven't, you know, they haven't changed. You know, you're no longer working it with the pedal or the mouse or whatever, who's the hamster's running the lathe. Yet the lathes are a lot nicer now, but the tools haven't changed a lot. These are more recent. They can get people into turning really quick. And what I tell people is, I use these for different reasons a lot of the time. And you know, what really matters is not what tool you used, but it's like what you have to show for it in the end. And nobody cares if I made this using traditional tools, which I did, or carbide tools, which I could have. And so it's a way, you know, these tools are a little trickier to use, because there's the whole technique of being on the bevel and understanding what that means and, you know, getting a feel for it. But I'll introduce those in the first class, get a feel for it, and then you'll be off and making bowls. And hopefully, I don't know, we have a half hour. I mean, we could, if you guys are exhausted, we can call it here, or I can show you what I do when I'm just playing and using tools. I don't know.
Play.
Going to play? And if anybody needs to go, I will not be offended if you take off.
I have one question for you.
Yeah.
When you were using this, how did you have it point?
Oh, sorry.
Vertically or?
Yeah, this tool goes straight in like this. So the tip is almost right at the center line. And that's another thing we talk about in class. Like the height, the tool rest is where we're supporting our tool. It's what allows us to have our mechanical advantage. For most of the tools, you want to cut at or near the center line. The skew chisel, it's nice to be a little higher because of some of the angles that you take. But
This one's for the skew chisel?
this is the skew chisel, yeah. And so is this one. It just has, I'm not sure why what's the advantage of the roundness. Maybe, I'm not sure. Maybe it's a little thinner up here, but it's harder to sharpen because when you put it on the rest to sharpen it, you know, you don't have a flat surface. So I bought this one first, didn't like it. I mean, it works fine, but then I bought a flat one. All right, so let me demonstrate. We'll just take a piece of wood here. This is kind of nice. I'm going to grab a piece of wood that's not so nice.
He's awesome, isn't he? Seaton's great. He's taken our whole lathe program to a whole other level.
Okay, this is just a piece of alder. Oh wait, is that alder? This looks like pipe. Yeah. And so what we're going to do, the way we're going to mount in most of our stuff in the first two classes, we're going to mount it between centers. And what I need to do is I just need to mark the center on each of these. This piece of wood will have a lot more tear out. This stuff won't look as nice, but I'll also show you how different tools and proper use give you better finishes. Okay, so I have that marked. And then what I'm going to do is, I think I had it out here because I was going to use it. I need a mallet that's not, well, I know I've got one back here. You can use wood. I don't like to pound on my metal with metal. You can use wooden mallets, you can use rubber mallets. And so what I'm going to do is, this is called a spur center. And it's got this taper here. It's called a Morse 2 taper. There's a Morse 1 taper that's skinnier, or Morse 3. And this fits in here by friction, but the friction is enough that it will drive this. It won't slip once you have the pressure in there. So we'll take that. That looks pretty good. It's not in there very deep, but it's good enough. Then I'm gonna pull this guy out, and this guy in. And now this wiggles around, so I'm gonna line this up with the center. So there we go. Lock that in. Now I've got this guy. The tool rest wants to be about, I'm going to put the tool rest a little above the center line because I'm going to show you another technique. Something that we'll talk about also in the intermediate class. So this is a good thing to demo. It's got a, I don't think that crack goes through. We should be safe. Our motto in the cave is no body parts except your feet on the ground, and the blood stays in the veins. So what's interesting, remember when I used the parting tool, turn that all the way down to start. So we always turn everything all the way down to start the lowest speed, because if we have a vibration or something bad's going to happen, we're going to find out about it early on. You can go up. So when we use this rough and gouge, you know, it's the same as the other gouges. It's got the flute, it's got the heel, it's got the bevel, it's got the cutting edge. And what I'll demonstrate, this is actually too high. I raised the rest for this, but I can demonstrate it anyways. It won't just cut efficiently. What we do is we rub the bevel. Nothing's gonna cut. We raise it so we feel our first cut. And then we go across, and as you can see, hardly cut anything. But the other thing you can use, the skew chisel, you can actually do like all of this with just the skew chisel. But it's a little catchy. There's some mechanics of it. So I'm gonna use this. I'm gonna ride on the bevel. I have to cut on the lower half. This is gonna be sitting on the tool rest like this. The wood's coming around like this. If I make contact above the center of the cutting edge, it's gonna force that down like that, and this edge is gonna dig in. If I have the guts, I'm gonna show you that. Because usually the results aren't too bad, but I still get, so I wanna cut, I wanna make sure I'm below there, but you can use this tool. It's actually a very fast way to round. It's already round, this part up here. Now what I want to show you is if I take this tool, I'll just, gotta lower this to do that. So I'm just gonna just round this part right here with this tool. Okay, and now I'm going to take the smoothest cut I can with this tool. So I'm going to get right on the bevel. I'm not taking that much material off. I'm trying to make, oops, I wasn't quite on the bevel. There we go. So I tried to make the smoothest cut I could with this tool. Now I'm going to go back to the skew. And I'll start right here, and I'm going to make the smoothest cut I can. And I got a little bit of tool mark in there. There we go. And if you look, if you can come up and look, you can see how smooth this is compared to this. And because when you look at, you can see how that compared to that, and you can just feel it with your hands. And because you can see this tool, oh, and I didn't even do this right. I left this at the same level as I had this. I would have gotten even, and you can just see how that scrapes. So you want nice sharp tools, but just see how nicely those ribbons come off. And here's what I'll demo it in slow motion. If I bring this down here, so I'm turning like this on the lower half. If I bring it to the upper half, boom, that edge went right into there. And I'm gonna see if I have the guts to show you that in real life. I don't know if I do. It happens to me all the time in practice, and I'm still standing here. So we're gonna get a catch. Okay, so here I'm doing it right. And look what it did to the wood.
Is there any way to smooth that over, or is it kind of just cut your losses back?
So when you have this, what you do is you say, oh, I'm just going to make this skinnier here. Okay. Yeah, but if you're in the final stages of a snowman and you get that, it's like, well, maybe I'm going to make him be a 4-tier snowman or something. But yeah, so once you get that, I'm actually proud of myself for purposely getting so now I can remove that. So here was a question you had. So let's say you were making a Christmas tree and you did that early on. You can come back and now it's completely gone. But you saw, because this point is sharp and this tool works best when it's sharp, that thing comes over quick and digs in and makes a mess of your piece. Okay, so now we'll continue with this guy. I'm going to smooth this up with this. And so I'm just being really careful, but if I'm going to use this tool, I really need it to be at the right height. And then what I would do if you were in here and, you know, we'll just work on this part, I'd say, oh, let's make some V-grooves. And I'll show you how we do these in the second class. Let's do some V-grooves. And let's turn them over. Let's use this tool. Maybe we'll even do this end and watch. I'll even show you what happens when you get a run back. Of course, I'm not getting it when I want to get one. So notice I did the snowman using the other tool, but you can roll these beads really nicely with this tool, and then you can come in and do some things. Oh, let's make a mushroom. That sounds like a fun thing to do. So we'll do him. I'm just going to get rid of a bunch of, I've got to lower this. I'm going to take the parting tool going straight in. And I'll use the spindle gouge because I'm not really worried about taking away a ton. I can get rid of and we'll have a nice long, tall, skinny cap on him. Round this out a little bit more. Let's round them out down here a little bit. We won't take the top off yet. In the end, we'll make the top stand free, but we don't want to do that yet because this is now just pinned from both ends. Even though we didn't have, when we used the other two methods with the screws in the end, even when you took the top off, it stayed on here. If this comes off because it's pinned between the ends, the whole piece is going to fly off, and we don't want that to happen. So there, you know, so there we just thought, okay, let's curve that. And let's make this base kind of fun. Let's give it a weird stem. Why don't we make it, actually, let's make them really skinny. These are good techniques to do. Just don't make it so skinny that